Hi guys, welcome to the Sling Den. I'm your host Ben, and today is the very first episode of the podcast. And it's our very first episode, and we have one of the most influential YouTube Slingshot content creators out there, all the way from Canada. Now, when I say Slingshot and I say Canada, you're probably guessing who it is. And of course, that is Mark from ATO. Hello, Mark. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, the pleasure's mine. I'm honored to have you on, especially being the first show that we're doing. So I suppose let everyone know who you are.
Well, I'm just Mark. My full name is actually Mark Abel. I've started this YouTube channel for a while ago, and that's really pretty much it. I'm kind of surprised I'm actually here, to be honest.
Okay, cool.
Blown away, even. Yeah.
So how long have you been shooting?
Oh, that's kind of a tricky question. I've only been shooting slingshots, I guess, since around 2018.
Okay.
My first video was actually kind of just by accident. I was looking through the internet, and I found these flat band slingshots. I've never seen them before in my life, and I've always used those wrist rocket things when I was a kid, but I hadn't shot one in like 20 years. And I was showing my son, I'm like, look at this, we should get one for fun and see how it is. And I got one of those top archery slingshots, and that turned out to be my first video. And we shot through the first two bands. I didn't know where to get any more, and I put it on the shelf for like a year. And I started back shooting again when COVID started.
Right. Okay.
So I guess right at the beginning of 2019. But before that, I mean, as a kid, I started shooting handguns and rifles, I guess, when I was like 10 years old with my dad. Mm-hmm. And from there, we kind of got out of the sport in my 20s, and then I took up archery for a bit. So that's pretty much where it all started. I just love shooting stuff.
Do you remember what your first slingshot was? I mean, I know you mentioned the older kind of slingshot you had, but
my first slingshot. Mm-hmm. My first slingshot ever as a kid was one of those Daisy wrist rocket type things.
Uh-huh.
You know, the wire frames with the little arm brakes and everything. Yeah, that was it. That was my first one.
Back then they were accurate, right? But not so much these days. Now, not with the flat bands out there.
Oh, yeah, they're nothing close to the accuracy that you can get with those things. That's for sure.
And what was the first slingshot you got with the flat bands? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a top archery. I can't remember what it was. Top Archery Pro. It's actually my first video.
Okay, and do you still have it?
Yeah, I still have it. I can't get rid of it. It's probably a menace and dangerous to shoot, but I can't get rid of that thing. The clips are on the wrong side, so if it ever releases, you're eating one in the face. You know?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Wow. So is it? I know with your videos, a lot of it is target shooting. Do you do any sort of hunting with a slingshot at all, or is it primarily sort of target shooting?
The problem we have here in Canada with where I live in Quebec, we're not allowed to hunt here with a slingshot at all. It's completely illegal. But in the neighboring province, I am allowed. So basically, my plan was actually last year I bought all my permits for it, but I couldn't find any land. So yeah, I could drive out of my province into Ontario. It'll take me maybe 30 minutes. I can go do a hunt there. But finding land that actually has access from where I can park my car, almost impossible.
Difficult.
I've been trying to reach out to some people to be able to start doing these kind of videos, and I can't get any land. And so it is in the works, but it's just tough.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've seen your videos and you're pretty accurate. Have you entered any competitions at all? Is that something that you've done?
I've never done a competition in my life.
Well, it's quite impressive. I mean, you might surprise yourself if you go and enter one, right?
Yeah, well, I have no idea, like how well I would shoot or anything like that. I really have no idea, but I don't know. I would like to try it one day, but we don't have any in Canada. In fact, I don't even know a shooter in Canada. I talk to one guy once in a while. This guy Shane. He does island made catapults, but he lives in PEI. It's probably around a 13-hour drive from me.
Wow.
Yeah.
that's a bit of a distance.
Yeah, it's a bit far.
So in terms of your channel, what made you start a YouTube channel? Because by the sounds of things from what you've said, It's almost like they come about at the same time. You didn't kind of create a channel because you loved slingshots. It was kind of hand in hand. You made a channel and slingshots come along, or am I a bit wrong there in saying that?
Well, I've actually had a YouTube channel for many years. Like I think I had a bushcraft channel for about 6 years before I started the Slingshot channel. But basically, what happened is I had a lot of videos that were doing really well, and I just my channel wasn't growing, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I basically discovered that I had made an error in setting up my channel. I set it up as a business account, and YouTube doesn't promote those accounts. So
Right.
I just couldn't get any views. Like my best video was I think I got like 20,000 views or something like that. And this was like over a 6 year period.
Wow.
And I was doing like knife builds, survival stuff, bushcraft, wild camping, all kinds of stuff, shelters and everything. And my channel just wasn't working. And I said, I started talking around, asking some questions, and then somebody told me that it's because I made it as a business account, and I started this channel ATO to start transferring over some of my videos to do it. So I made the channel, and then I was like, maybe I'm just going to get out of the game and just forget about YouTube. And I ended up getting this top archery slingshot. Did that first video, stuck that thing inside. I think I named it like on the thumbnail was like the best slingshot on Amazon, something like that.
Right.
And I popped that up. I didn't even look at the channel for a year. I went back and checked it and had 80,000 views.
Seriously. So you didn't even check it. You just, well, I suppose you were used to, in a way, not getting any followers, not getting any views on your last channel. You thought, well, why am I going to get some now? And then you come back and boom, it's exploded.
Yeah. One video on my whole channel, 80,000 views. And I'm like, whoa, maybe we're onto something here. And I had so much fun shooting that slingshot with my son. Like for those people who've seen that video, I mean, I had a swing set with a sheet as my backdrop. We were just shooting cans, and I picked that thing up, and I'm like, how good can it be, And I was blowing up cans like right away, and I just blew my mind. I was like, holy crap! I hadn't figured out why that slingshot worked for me or not, or I didn't even really know what I was doing, to be honest. But for some reason, the channel took off, and I was having fun again, which was cool.
That's the important thing, right?
Yeah. So right after that, the winter came in, so we didn't shoot. And then I guess it was like maybe it was around 8 months or so, something around there. I can't remember exactly the time frame of it, but February came around, 2019. COVID was just starting to creep in. Nobody really knew what was going on, so everyone was staying home. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna go crazy if I can't go outside and have some fun. So I ordered a Scout LT and the Hammer Pro from GZK. The Hammer Pro TTF. It was actually TTF frame was one of my first, and that's where just started shooting, and I became addicted.
Okay, now I've got a theory on why I believe your channel is so successful, but what would you say contributed to your channel kind of getting this, as well viewed as it has up to now?
Honestly, man, I can't seem to wrap my head around it. I try to bring an honest view on things when I'm talking about them. As I'm figuring things out, I'm trying to be able to deliver to you in a clear, positive way. Because when I was starting out trying to figure out what the hell I was doing, I couldn't figure it out, and there wasn't enough tutorials on things that really kind of broke things down or actually showed the effects. And that's the road I tried to take. And I'm hoping it's my honesty that people like. I don't know.
From my point of view, when I look at your videos, there's no one sort of out there that breaks down perhaps the variety of things that can impact your shooting. And you set up many things, and you talk about how different things can affect your shooting, from sort of temperatures, the pouches, and of course, there's many things that can affect your shooting, but it's also very personal in the sense of slingshot shooting is very subjective. I mean, what works for one person might not work for the other.
Yeah.
But what I like about the content that you share is, there might be someone out there that's trying to shoot, and they're watching all these videos, and there's the same things about being consistent, about finding your anchor point, about getting your reference point, but they're still not hitting the target. And I think what kind of resonated with me is that you break certain things down, and it's content on there for people to kind of say, well, I haven't thought about that. I haven't tried that. I mean, your recent videos are in the snow, so obviously you're shooting in the cold, and I'm thinking, well, how does that affect it? And you've got the answers there, and obviously you've got I can't remember what you call it. It's like it measures the speed of the ammo, right?
Yep.
So you're using that as well. So again, very kind of direct results of some of the things you're changing. You're changing sort of the bands, the pouches, and then you're giving results each side just to show how much of a difference it makes. Would you agree with that in saying that you break down in what I'd probably call as the most scientific or mathematically broken down kind of answers for the slingshot shooters out there?
Actually, doing those videos, it's like I have a question in my head, like why, like what is really the big difference? And a lot of the things that I look into is because of my viewers. Like they'll ask me a question, and I'm kind of like, let's see. So they end up seeing like a 10-minute video of what I come up with in the end, but really there's like 20 hours work that goes into that. Like I'm like I pull up like a piece of paper and I start with like all my points. Okay, now how am I going to eliminate this variable? How do I eliminate that variable? And as I'm going through everything, that video that you're talking about with the pouches, I was almost happy with that video. I think that it would have been best if I could have found two pouches the exact same thing, just to eliminate that last variable of possibly having some wind resistance there. But we were pretty close on that one, so I actually, I let it out. But the I don't know, man. I'm really kind of like blown away sometimes some of these things that come up and these things that we're talking about. I don't know. I think it's like a little bit beyond my capacity, really, sometimes. But I need to know, and that's it. I just do my best to put it together and get like a good answer for those who have the same question as me, possibly. You know, and there's many times actually I've done these videos where I'm kind of like, man, nobody's gonna watch this crap. I just gotta like forget it, move on. They want to see trick shots, but I guess I'm wrong, you know. So now I'm just starting to release everything, and if I have a question, I release it, and I'm hoping it's gonna help somebody out, even if it's one person who has that question.
I think it depends with the viewers what they're looking for. I mean, if they're looking for trick shots, of course, there's a lot of content out there, but I think, especially when I started shooting, I was looking for videos on how to shoot. And what I found was there were a lot of videos out there. And say we got 5-10-minute videos. You could watch all 5 of them. The majority of what people are saying is the same. And it's true. It's not that it's false information. It's correct in what they're saying. But there's not, and perhaps some things may not be, they may not be worth looking into, but what I like about it is you do kind of think about everything. And is it a case of you're learning on the spot? So when you think about creating a video and you're thinking about perhaps the bands or the pouches or the fork widths, are you kind of thinking to yourself, let's give it a go, and you go and record? Or is it kind of planned out and you find out the results first and then record?
No, before I go out and I do these videos, to make sure that I'm trying to bring the most correct information possible, I do a field test first, I guess we'll call it. In that video where I was talking about the release, on how if your elbow is not high enough, or if it's too high and you kind of speed bump it and go down, I could just say to you verbally like I've done now, but you're not actually going to see the results. So when I did that video, I purposely speed bumped down. I purposely speed bumped up with my elbow sagging. I actually plucked a release, so I just kind of like let it go violently, I guess. And we shot on a piece of paper. And when that bullet hit, you could actually see where it was going. And then I did a couple of control shots where bullseyes. So proper form, proper comfort, keeping it down, nice, gentle release. And for me, people could talk to me all they want, but until I see it in action, that's when it really sinks in. And I think there's others out there too like that. So that's my approach to those kind of videos, hoping that it would all work out. And I field test it first, take a couple of shots. I'm like, okay, what I'm trying to bring forward is correct. Time to roll the camera. Let's go.
Perfect. So, what does the future hold for ATO? What do you think's next? I
Man, I
mean, I'm
really don't
surprised
know.
you're still coming out with content because it seems like you have covered so much, man. Like you've
I
covered
know,
so many
but
different things.
I think there's definitely there's going to be more and more tutorials. Like I'm planning on doing a couple more videos. I don't know if I should air them out here yet, but more technique. I mean, there's some things that I think it's kind of I get questions on a lot, like shooting high, shooting low, all tips and tricks for this kind of stuff. I mean, I've done some practicing in other videos where I go through the woods and I set up multiple distances, some high shots, some low shots, some small stuff, some big stuff. And I actually find sometimes shooting on larger targets can be trickier than shooting small targets. I don't know, it sounds kind of weird, but I don't think, like when if I'm shooting at an 8 millimeter flipper or an
Mhm.
8 centimeter flipper, sorry, and I'm shooting at a 30 millimeter flipper, the amount of concentration that goes into the two are two different. Like that aim small, miss small thing is really true. If I take an 8 centimeter flipper and I draw a small dot in the center and I focus on that dot, I can almost stack the shots on that dot over and over and over again. If I'm shooting the 8 centimeter flipper, just plain, for some reason, I'm hitting all over that target. You see, like
I think it's as
anyway,
you said,
there's a few other things I want to bring up.
it's the focus, isn't it? It's the
Yeah,
kind of I mean, even if you're hitting a can, for example, you're kind of trying to focus on one particular point in the can. You're not just looking at the can. And I suppose it's the same sort of thing when you're looking at the size of the flipper.
yep, 100%. Like if I was shooting at some kind of soda can or whatever it is, I want to shoot at the letter on the writing
Yeah,
somewhere,
exactly.
or
Yeah.
maybe the Canada stamp or wherever it's from, made in the USA or whatever. Try to aim for that little tiny piece and aim at that. Make that your victim. Was instead of just shooting at that whole thing as a whole.
Mm-hmm. So I was actually going to bring on the next subject, which is going to be technique. So we're going to touch on a few things here. But I'm quite surprised that you said, I thought you'd been shooting for kind of 10 years or so from sort of content you've been putting out there. So well done, man. Like it's pretty good to see how far you've come. But what do you contribute towards you becoming so accurate? Is, is it, is
Honestly,
it is it
it was
equipment
from
as well as technique, or would you say what sort of come first? Because for me, I thought I was doing everything wrong until I swapped a few things out, and then once I kind of found my groove with what I like and what I don't like, my shooting got a lot better. So for you, what would you say is your kind of journey?
well in the beginning of my channel, I did this quest for accuracy vlog. I think the first one is probably like my third or fourth video coming into this. Basically what I did was I set up my catch box with a 30 millimeter. Actually, hold on a second. Do I have it on me? Yeah, I do. Here, I'll show you. I had this 30 millimeter flipper, which is now on my keychain. This little fella right here.
Wow,
You see, it's got a whole bunch of
it's
divots
got
in
the
it.
mark, it's got the
Yeah.
wounds.
So I started shooting that little fella, 50 shots, 50 shots only from 10 meters away. And I wanted to see how many times I can hit that thing out of my 50 shots. Now, my plan was to do 30 days of this, shooting that little flipper, and calculate how many misses and how many hits I had of those 50 shots all the way. I think I did 14 episodes in a row, and then the work was just overwhelming. I mean, you're having rainstorms and this and that, and I ended up having to shoot 2 videos in the same day to keep the trend going, and it was very tough. But
Mhm.
from the first time I did that video, I hit that little flipper 8 times, which I thought was a huge success considering how
Mhm.
small it was,
It's
and
small, yeah.
I was used to shooting cans, right? So then, from then to my last video, I think my last video I hit it 35 times out of 50.
Big
And
difference.
that blew my mind. Like, oh man, like we're coming into like 60% area here, or more. It's like,
And was the homework done then to figure out where that gap kind of closed, where that 8 kind of turned into the 35?
well, I'd taken my my shooting with firearms and shooting with a bow, all the steps going into all of those things, you always have a shot sequence.
Mhm.
So, for example, when I was shooting handguns, we'd always line up the sight, or shooting the rifle. Got lined up on my sight, got comfortable, relaxed, took a breath, slowly released it, held it, aimed, and fired. And I would talk myself through these steps all the way through from beginning to end. And I mean, I was like 10 years old, shooting things at 100 yards away with iron sights on a rifle, and it wasn't an issue. When I got further on into these into the archery, they set me up with a shot sequence, and they actually brought into my feet as having a thing, because I was getting a lot of arm slap.
Right.
So when I was drawing my bow, was the same kind of issue. If I turned my foot out slightly on a 45, my geometry would change in my arm, and it would give me that space of where to shoot from.
Mm-hmm.
So after having those two shot sequences in my head, I had to develop one for slingshots. And I kind of thought about it methodically. It was basically, okay, I got to get a shot sequence into my head to avoid a few things. One of them was to keep me focused on each movement all the way through. I gave myself a time limit of 3 seconds. So when I draw, it was 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, then I'd release. If I couldn't get that amount of time, get on target properly or feel good about it in that amount of time, I'd abort the shot and then go through my shot sequence again and continue on doing this. I used the camera.
You did that consistently throughout the whole kind of period of time between the two times.
Yep. Trying to train my body to get the muscle memory so I didn't have any bad habits, or try to avoid learning any bad habits, was basically the goal. So
do you remember any sort of bad habits from your early days?
Oh, I had a bunch. I had a low elbow, which caused a speed bump. My release was wasn't smooth. It was very mechanical. It was like from closed hard to open. Small tweaks in my setup actually corrected that problem. I was holding always the smooth side of the pouch on the backside, so I felt like I had to grip it more, because I had a couple of times where I did a different draw. I think it was Fowler was talking about how he used to draw the thing and then lift it up for safety reasons, and he is correct on that. I'm not going to deny it. But I found that if I anchored in my position and then stretched my arm out to meet my target, I had better control. I just had to be more diligent about looking at my bands. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I had to worry about my elbow. I had to worry about my release being kind of plucky, and yeah, that was pretty much it. But then there came into other things about frame size and all that stuff. But we can get into that later if you like.
Yeah. So I was actually just going to touch on that, because one thing I noticed there is you didn't really mention your anchor point or your reference point. And it's very true that you kind of need to find one and stick to it, right?
Yeah.
But when we're talking fork widths, we know that it does affect the shot, right? We know that it affects the shot. So with that, how plausible would it be to say that you can change your reference point or your anchor point? And if so, which one would you kind of veer towards if you were to change your fork width?
Well, my anchor tends to be basically the point of my cheekbone, and I like to put my thumbnail right on there, right? And if you actually look at it, it kind of lines up just directly under my eye. So when I set my shot up, I'm feeling pretty good. I try to open my fingers to give myself enough room for just the slide open, so I'm not battling with my release. The fork widths. If you look at almost all the reviews that I've done, I try to get that 90 millimeter fork width. Now, the reason why I do that is because of my big old pumpkin head. When I line up my anchor point, if I stretch out a 90 millimeter frame and I'm holding it correctly, the bands are going to be perfectly even from a frame that's like set up like this. My forks are here. My bands are going to come straight off their taper there evenly. So I have a nice pull. if I shoot, for example, the Evo or like I've been dying to try like a PPMG or something like this, but the frame widths or the fork widths are just too wide for me. They're like 100 millimeters or like 95, 97, something like that. If I'm pulling those back, I would have to change my anchor point all the way down here to the corner of my mouth.
You would actually change your anchor point rather than your reference point.
I would rather not.
Okay.
I'd actually rather gap shoot my reference point and do that. Which brings in another problem with TTF, for example. When I'm trying to aim something, say this is my top fork, if I'm trying to aim something, I'm trying to hit my nose, so I got to cover my nose. With a wider fork frame, I'm going to be up here. I can't even see my target anymore because I have to lift it up. On a TTF frame or OTT, sorry, I can split that target. So if I'm in my aiming reference here at my first knuckle, I could still line it up with half the target being seen. Nothing's blocked from my view, which is why I choose I'm an OTT shooter, obviously. But when you get into those long distance shots with TTF and all that stuff, I was having problems with it. Wider fork frames, they just make the shooting a little bit more difficult from 10 meters for me because I have to raise up a little bit higher and shoot off the side of the front of the fork instead of the side or the fork tip like I like to at 10 meters. So I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, no, it does. But what for you? Like, I'm the kind of person where if I find something that works, I'm very reluctant to change it. So for you, if you find something that works, are you sticking to that? I mean, have you got a go-to thing, a go-to set that you use, or is it just a hobby of yours or an interest to try out different things and see if you can improve your shots, or is it just the fact that you enjoy testing different things out?
Well, I like doing the reviews. I think it brings more eyes to the channel as well, which is probably a part of my motivation of why I do it. I have a couple of frames here that I have that are some of my favorites and the reason why I like shooting them. But as where everything changed for me was shooting that Hammer Pro, the TTF one. There were some days I could pick that thing up and I couldn't miss, and there was other days I'd pick it up and I was frame hitting, I was hitting my hand. It was just a giant mess, and I couldn't figure out why. So I ended up buying the OTT version of the Hammer Pro. I shot that one for a while, and that's the frame I started off with doing that Quest for Accuracy vlog. It's only when I got this guy, my Titan Hunter from Catapult Carnage, where everything started to get into my brain about why the fork widths are important. And this guy, I got the medium Titan Hunter, and it's a 90 millimeter fork width. And all of a sudden, my shooting instantly got better, like that. Now, I know we're probably gonna get some heat on this, but a lot of people say that a frame doesn't make you better; it's the shooter. And I agree, and I disagree. Here's my approach on this. If, for example, I take a frame that's 70 millimeters wide, and I try to shoot that frame, and I'm a big fan of Nick Hagerty. The first frame that I got from him was a very, very narrow fork width, and I wanted to love that frame so bad because I'm a Nick fan, and I shot and I shot and I shot, and I couldn't get that thing to work for me unless I was shooting long draw. So I ended up taking that frame, putting it away, and I got another one, which was the HMH or something like that, about a year and a half later. That frame was 90 millimeters. And man, what a frame. It's one of those poly frames, nothing special, but I picked it up and I was just as accurate as with that one as I was with this one. And it was insane. Like the frame width, here's my approach. I guess the frame width is kind of like if you're an athlete and you're a sprinter, and if I put you in shoes that are too big, you're not going to run your best. You're not going to run your fastest. If I give you a slingshot that actually fits your anchor point, fits your style, and everything is perfect, and like you're going to shoot really, really great with that slingshot, much easier than you will with a slingshot that you got to try to figure out how to shoot.
Exactly.
Now, There are people that may have a narrower face, and when they're shooting, they can get away with a shallower cup, so their fork length isn't as long. There are people that the distance between their eye and their anchor point is somewhere around that 50-50 mark between for 100 millimeter frame, and they're going to shoot great with that, but they're going to struggle with a 90, and they may shoot higher all the time. So this is where I come at it with, if you're going to shoot, naturally the way your body is shaped will be more comfortable with a frame that has a specific frame width.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with changing your anchor point all the time, because that will give you an inconsistent anchor point problem where you're constantly feeling like your thumb belongs there, or however it is you anchor, and it can cause you problems.
So essentially what you're saying is it's not so much one size fits all, and you need to kind of adapt and find something that works for you. And I've got for the longest time I used the Wasp Unifox, which is an 87 millimeter width on, and yep. I've gone over to a 90 fairly recently actually, and because I had shot 87 for so long, and I was used to my my reference point being in a certain place, it was very strange because I thought, well, I don't have to make that adjustment anymore. I can just line the tip of the fork up and I'm going to hit. But it didn't work until I swapped some bands over. I did a little bit of digging with my tapers, and then it was there. So it is playing around, and I wouldn't recommend to new shooters to change too much. But there's definitely something there where you do need to have a play around, and it goes back to what you're just saying about sort of it isn't necessarily one size fits all. You do have to find something that fits your needs.
Absolutely, 100%. Every setup has to be set up for the shooter. There is no perfect frame. There is no perfect band set. There is no perfect pouch. There's no perfect ammo. There's many shooters that are out there that'll tell you, oh, use this taper. I happen to use this taper. Really? I mean, I get asked all the time, what's the best band set for this? What's the best band set for that? Really, it comes down to, the only thing I really kind of stick to is, what is the lightest draw weight with an acceptable speed for you to shoot to do whatever it is you want to do with your slingshot? Mm-hmm. So if you want to hunt, are you getting enough speed to be able to kill your game? If you want to shoot your target frame, your shoot targets, are you getting enough speed to actually get down there and shoot it consistently, where your draw length or draw weight is actually the lightest as possible? Because the less you have to hold here, the more stable your whole form is going to be. And that's the only thing I can say that should be the same for everybody. Besides that, your choice on bands, choice on pouches, and choice on frame is totally up to the shooter.
And I think also it's worth mentioning that you kind of have to be comfortable, because obviously you're practicing a lot, so you need something that's comfortable in terms of the grip on the fork itself. You kind of need to make sure that the pouch hold, so whether that's the pouches or, as you said, how much you need to hold that band and how much tension you got is going to reflect how you're going to be able to hold it at the other end. So for me, it's a little bit of that. I want to be comfortable because I want to enjoy it, and I don't want to be firing something that is it's causing me problems. I'm having to really kind of strain and do you find that you've got your favorites in that sense, where the setup itself is comfortable, and not necessarily talking about accuracy and power, but in terms of actually fitting yourself to feel comfortable when you're shooting?
Yeah, for sure. I've been talking about that Cygnus frame I've had for quite a long time. And actually, I don't know if I can pull it up here and give you a quick look there. This little beauty, I'm sure you've seen this in my videos a few times. Mm-hmm. I tend to like to shoot that guy with Gongchi White 0.5. Mm-hmm. Now, Gongchi White is not the fastest band out there. I don't even tune it to get the full potential. Pull it up here and give you a quick look there. This little beauty, I'm sure you've seen this in my videos a few times. Mm-hmm. I tend to like to shoot that guy with Gongchi White 0.5. Now, Gong Chi White is not the fastest band out there. I don't even tune it to get the full potential out of it. I shoot it so I know that when I'm target shooting, it's going to get down to where I want to. Wherever I'm pointing my fork tip, it's going to get down there and it's going to hit that spot. Basically, my reference point, I use my fork tip as a sight. So wherever I'm releasing my fork tip or my ammo, I want that ball to hit where my fork tip's pointing. And I go over this all the time, and that's why I try to, I try to say to all new shooters, if you're holding out your frame, when you release that pouch, count 2 seconds after that ball is gone. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, then drop your arm. That'll keep you from pulling your shot.
I suppose it's the same as releasing that. When you release the ball too, it's not a case of releasing and you're dropping your hand. It's almost your hand doesn't move. You're just letting it slip through the fingers, right?
Yep. All movements should be small and smooth. So once you pull it up here, you're comfortable. Just open it up enough for it to slip out. I know we used to talk when we were shooting, shooting firearms, was whenever the bullet or whenever the gun fires, it should be a surprise. So when you're aiming, you're slowly shooting, you're pulling. You should be able to abort that shot anytime. You should be in full control, but it should be slowly, click, boom, that's it, it's gone. Same as archery, same as slingshot shooting, all of it.
And
that's my approach. Anyway,
for new shooters, if you could pick 3 bits of advice you could give a new shooter, what would it be?
Don't start too heavy, which is probably the first one. Reason why I say that is way back, I did a video shooting. I used to shoot precise .65. Very, very nice bands. I did, I think it was like 10 shots on a paper target, and you see how my shots went. And then if I remember correctly, I don't remember the brands, but I think I went down to GZK .5, and I watched my grouping go from like this to like this. And I wanted to show the differences of this. Go lighter, if you go lighter, your groups go tighter. And that was pretty much it. So I guess that would be the first thing. The second thing would be is actually videotape yourself shooting. Reason why I say that is sometimes you're shooting at a target and you don't really know what's gone wrong. You feel like you're comfortable, but then your arm starts to droop, and then all of a sudden your shots start going wonky and you can't figure it out.
Especially when that frustration kicks in, right? Because you see a lot of people missing, and then they're like straight away they're loading up another ball and it's boom. And they're getting frustrated, they're getting flustered, and they're not actually concentrating too much on the technique. They're just waiting for that shot to hit the target, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the big difference between good practice and bad practice. Is you don't want to shoot until you start getting too tired, because when you start getting too tired, that's when your form falls apart, or you get tired, or you end up going crazy. And that's why when I did the Quest for Accuracy video, I only shot 50 shots. That was the whole reason for it. Was get my good 50 shots in, concentrate for a certain amount of time that you feel you can actually hold, go through all the steps over and over and over again without getting tired or having hand cramps or anything like this. So definitely don't overload yourself with weight. And when you're shooting, good practice, follow through your shot sequence, let each shot go. And when you start seeing yourself getting tired, hit one more good shot where it lands, and then call it quits. End on a good note. That's important. Yeah. And so what are we at now? We're at...
So you've got... What was the first one?
So don't overload your weight.
Don't overload
Shoot a comfortable band set, so lighter draw.
Record yourself, which I like.
Record yourself for sure, so you can troubleshoot your issues. And the third one, I know people don't like this, but when you're shooting flippers or you're shooting cans, you could just be coming off the edges of things or whatever it is. Cans too big of a target. Find yourself a small target. Yeah, you're going to miss a lot in the beginning, but that doesn't matter. Shoot paper. Because if you're shooting a flipper and you miss, you don't necessarily know how much you missed by. If you're even up, if you're low, if you're left or right. When you're getting your practice shots in, always take your aim, walk through your shot sequence, shoot paper, and you're going to know exactly where you went wrong. Oh man, I'm 3 inches off to the right. I don't know why. Well, you walk on down there, you check it out, you come on back, hit rewind on your device, and find out exactly where you went wrong. Oh man, I just noticed my elbow dropped on that one. I got to remember to keep my elbow up. Oh, my release was a little bit violent. This is what the problem is, and usually it's a release. It's a release issue.
And then you make the adjustments. You do the same thing again, and that's what I guess we'd call good practice.
Yep, and don't overshoot. Just practice your shots. Do maybe like what I do is I have my paper target set up. I'll shoot 10 shots. I'll have a look at it. Okay, we're looking pretty good. Switch to paper, shoot 10 shots. And as I go on, usually my grouping starts to get a little bit bigger because you're shooting over and over and over again, and you're not taking your time, pacing out your shots. You get kind of robotic with your shooting, and you'll find your shots pick up a little bit. It's always good to shake yourself out, relax a little bit. I don't know, just trying to pace everything out more comfortably, and you'll find that your grouping and your consistency gets better.
Okay, so let's talk setups. I'm going to throw a very difficult question at you. Hope you're ready for it. If you could pick one setup and one setup only, give me the fork, the bands, the pouch, the ammo.
Oh, so okay. We're talking about one slingshot,
one slingshot,
one band,
one
pouch, and one ammo.
Yep.
Whew. Man, that's a tough one.
And then let's add OTT or TTF.
Okay, for me, OTT right away, easy one. So that would be definitely it. Man, I don't know if I had to pick one, eh? Well, I've done a lot of testing recently. And I just released a video, actually. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but no, I'm not going to say it. I think if I was gonna pick one, it would probably be my Cygnus from Prime Fork. I've done some amazing shooting with that thing. As it stands, it would be that
sort of some sentimental kind of thing too.
No. I actually saw a big jump in my shooting with that, and it's due to the grip on that frame. I tried I recently did a review on the Bold on that frame too, and it was more comfortable, but for some reason I just couldn't shoot as good with it no matter what. Yeah. And this Cygnus, it's got this nice narrow waist in there, and it really locks in my hand real nice. The fork length of them seems to be right and sweet.
What's your go-to grip?
What was that?
What is your go-to grip?
Oh, I'm a thumb brace guy.
Thumb brace. Okay.
Yeah, definitely a thumb brace guy. Yeah. Anyway, so basically, I guess the Cygnus would be my frame. It's got a good 90 millimeter frame on it. If I was going to change anything about that, I would get rid of that fiber optic sight. I don't like it. And again, my bands would be Gongchi 0.5 for target shooting for sure. And I really like Warrior Mongol pouches in kangaroo leather. The blue ones. It makes a difference.
I've not tried them. I have to invest.
Yeah. Yeah. The blue ones are they seem to be a little bit more firm and thicker. And they're a little less comfortable in the beginning, but as you start shooting them, they're really, really nice. They break in nice, almost like a pit locating pouch. It's kind of crazy. The ball will actually pocket out the inside of that pouch, and they're absolutely beautiful to shoot with. The red ones kind of stretch out a little bit more, and the plain brown ones are a little bit too thin, so they kind of wear on your fingers after a while, but the blue ones are sweet.
And I'm assuming they're designed for those purposes of having different feels.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, if this is allowed, there is a second pouch actually that my buddy Wes Mitchell sent me. He made some pouches out of kangaroo leather that are very similar in size, but a slightly different shape than the Warrior Mongol pouches, and those are really, really nice too.
Good. And in terms of equipment, I know it's hard to say because we've got to think about everything when we're talking about equipment. But if you were to if you were to speak to a beginner, what would you say matters most when we're talking about equipment?
Well, I guess the first thing would be I don't know if you guys noticed in my videos when I'm doing reviews on slingshots. I recently started doing slow motion close-ups of how the grip reacts in your hand after releasing a shot. For me, I think one of the most important things all the way around is how a frame feels in your hand and the grip of it. If you're trying to shoot and you feel that frame slipping around a little bit, it might be an issue that can cause you problems from, you know, when you're releasing it and the frame is slipping in and out of your hand and all that stuff. To me, that's not a well-designed frame. You probably should be able to hold it with a slightly firm but relaxed grip. You shouldn't have to squeeze it with a death grip. The design of it should keep your hands close to the forks. You shouldn't be slipping down. When you wrap your fingers around it, you should be able to get your fingers just right about around the whole thing, so it locks into your palm. And when you're getting ready to let go, it doesn't slip off your thumb from the recoil. And usually, as long as you can get your hands up close to the forks, you won't have that. So, choosing a frame, how on the grip, that would be where I would say to go for.
And that's what I was just going to say, because there are a lot of slingshots out there that are kind of one size fits all, and they can meet the needs of any grip. But then, of course, you have got these purpose-built slingshots for the grip. So I'm a pinch grip, and it made a huge difference to me actually going and getting a slingshot that is purpose-built for a pinch grip. And I guess what I would personally recommend is to get one that kind of fits all the needs. But once you find out what you like, then perhaps do some research and find out what other people with the same sort of, using the same sort of grip as yourself would do, and then go from there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. For example, depending on the frame you're picking, I've got a Scout LT here, which is usually designed for pinch grip. But it can be, I shoot it actually thumb brace. It'll work both ways. This kind of frame is probably my go-to that I tell people if they're going to be starting out to go with a Scout LT. I like the frame width of it, but it's got a few other good things about it, like the fact that you've got multiple choices on how to hold it. You've got multiple choices on how to shoot it. You can set it up in OTT or TTF. They're relatively reasonably priced. I mean, not the LE like this one, but the regular plastic frames, the molded frames. All of those slingshots like that are great because they're a good beater. You can frame hit them and they're gonna survive. You can shoot it multiple ways, figure things out on what you like if you're more of a TTF guy or an OTT guy. My only knock on that is that the fork tips are a little bit on the narrow side, but okay. I mean, a 20 millimeter fork tip, you can still get a good band set on there. But that's pretty much the kind of style I would suggest to anybody. I'm not necessarily a simple shot frame, but any frame where you can kind of feel it out in the beginning.
Frame that's going to allow you to shoot in different ways, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got your wrapping and you've got your clips. What's your take on that? Do you think that affects the shooting at all?
I don't know. I'm not a fan of wrap and tuck, just because I don't know, for some reason these big old sausage fingers or whatever it is, I have a hard time doing it. When I switched to I've got this guy here, it's the Ranger Recurve from Pocket Predator. I started using that tape that actually sticks them on there. I mean, this stuff holds fantastic. You can really give a good tug on there. I'm not worried about that coming off at all. And it makes life much, much easier for us with guys with these big caveman hands, you know?
And I suppose if you are going to be changing bands, not that it's something that a lot of people do, but especially if you're looking to do different things, for example, it could be that you're well established with shooting, but you're switching between sort of target shooting and hunting, and you want to be able to change out. The clips is definitely the way to go in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, the clips are pretty nice, but you always have to carry a tool with you, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to go wrap and tuck, the wrap and tuck.
Which, if
Sorry.
you the people listening can't see, it's the S96, and what I like about this one is it actually has the tool screwed into the bottom.
Oh, wow.
So you can just take that out of the bottom there, and that'll do your clips for you. But yeah, that is true. A lot of them don't come with that, so you are having to carry an extra tool.
Yeah. But I mean, the only thing is I find with wrap and tuck frames versus clip frames is how I mean, you guys have seen how I draw my shot. I anchor and then I pull. I can't do that with this frame. Bill Hayes actually has a video where he puts a dot on there. If I draw normally, like I normally do with this frame, I always tend to hook a little bit left for some reason. If I do it this way and I pull back, I'm spot on. So I think it has to do with something. If you see here, the top of the frame, the top of the elastic actually wraps around there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if I stretch it like this, it has a natural tendency to kind of come a little bit higher over the forks and loops it around. This is what I'm assuming. Maybe it's just a problem with me and how I shoot it. I don't know. But I know that if I'm going to shoot, if I pull it back like this, I don't have an issue with it at all. And Bill demonstrates this, and he has his dot. It actually stays right there on the fork. When he does it the other way around, it stretches around to the top of the fork, which kind of proves the theory a little bit. That's my only complaint about that. But that again is my shooting style. I like to start from here and stretch out. I don't have that problem with clips.
I was going to ask about that. You tend to get your anchor point first, and then you stretch out. Where did that come from? Because of course you've mentioned that you've done archery before, which is sort of backwards. You do it the other way around, right? So where did that come from?
Well, that was my issue with the inconsistent anchor point. When I was doing here's the thing. I mean, you're a shooter, and there's sometimes you pick up your frame, you're lining up for your shot, and it just doesn't feel right. You can't really figure out what the deal is. That happens so much more often when I was drawing here and then bringing everything up to my face, like Fowler did. Like even there, I'm not even on my anchor point. I'm beside it. So my whole focus was, if I want to get consistency, I have to be consistent with how I hold my frame, how I draw my frame, how I anchor my frame, the gear I'm using. Everything's got to be consistent from top to bottom, from gear to how I stand, to how I posture my body, how much I tilt my head when I shoot. All of that's got to make a difference. So to eliminate one of the variables, touch it here. Oh, it doesn't feel right. Adjust. Oh, there it is. Okay, boom. Stretched out. Instead of doing the whole thing and then reaching here, and then again, I did it, not in the right spot. But that's why I was trying to eliminate the inconsistent anchor point.
It definitely makes sense. So you touched on earlier the fact that in Canada itself, the scene isn't necessarily huge on slingshots. But do you feel that there's been a rise in popularity over the last few years globally?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a lot more people getting into the sport. With the slingshots coming more and more mainstream, there's guys like Adam Rayner. Sorry if I said his name wrong, but having the magazine, all of these things, it's like it's kind of cool. There's more and more things, people coming out and YouTube videos and people doing these trick shots, which is going to draw eyes to the sport. It's just I think it's growing. I really do. I hope it is anyway.
For me, it was kind of unknown that you could be so accurate. The first time I seen it was Wayne from Caddyshack. I don't know if you've seen anything from him with the Evos. But I think it was a suggestion because I follow a lot of sort of hunting pages and fishing pages and just general outdoor stuff. And I seen him kind of lining up a few pigeons with a slingshot. I was like, there's no way. There's no way you can be accurate. And it just blew my mind. But I mean, with the content out there, like you said, and the slingshots, I mean, part of the hobby is buying a new slingshot. You're waiting for it to come in the post. You're excited. And I think, once you're hooked, you're in. But how do you think as a community we can make it grow?
Well, I think probably one of the best things I think we can do is, when you have these, I don't know if you guys have these over the UK, but over here in Canada, we have these like little fairs and stuff. The little cities will have these city days or whatever it is. Yeah. It would be awesome for kids to be able to set up, these little small shooting ranges where these kids can come up and try it. Set up a pyramid of cans like they would at a country fair or something like that, and have these kids shoot them. I can guarantee the first time that kid knocks down a can, he's going to go ballistic, and that's where it's going to start. Is teach them how to learn how to shoot it, have access to it. Here in Canada, there's nothing like that at all. I've never heard of any shooting groups or anything. So never a tournament, nothing. Actually, I think there's maybe 2 or 3 guys that I talk to that shoot in my country that I know of, and everybody else is
elsewhere.
It doesn't exist, But I think that's how it's the best way to do it, is get the kids hooked on it. They're going to find the joy in it, just like taking a kid fishing or anything else like that. And then slowly but surely, as they grow, I think some of them are definitely going to stick with it. They're going to love it, and it's going to keep growing. I think that's the best way to do it.
No,
Get a slingshot in their hands. Show them how to do it properly. Teach kids to shoot. Best thing.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things is inexpensive. It doesn't cost much at all. It's such an inexpensive hobby. And I suppose, like you said, you kind of started back up with COVID and things like that. You don't need anything. Once you've got your slingshot, you need a backyard, right? It's not like you need to travel. You need to do different things. Obviously, you can travel if you want to do a bit of hunting, or there's competitions and things like that going on. But to actually start shooting, you just need to pick up a slingshot.
Yeah,
in fact,
absolutely.
You can actually pick up. You can go and cut down your own natural, if needs be. I wouldn't suggest it, and you should, but it is that easy. It is that simple.
It really is. I know when we were tiny, we were like really, really young. We started playing war games in the woods behind my old house with paintballs, Y forks, and bicycle tubes. Yeah, we cut them out with scissors and everything. Like, they didn't even last very long. But that was probably my first time ever shooting a slingshot, and that was maybe over one summer or so. We saw these little kids that moved into the area. I think they were from Haiti or something like that, and they were shooting these slingshots with rubber bands and with like rubber tubes, bicycle tubes cut, and that's what they were shooting. We were kind of, wow, there's got to be a better option than that. But
I suppose, do you think we could be sat here in 20 years' time, looking back at what we're using today? Do you think that they can go further? Because I'm sure back then they probably didn't really think that you could get more accurate and more power. It was just a slingshot's a slingshot. Obviously, with modern day technology and everyone involved in the community trying different things, and that's where I've seen the growth personally, is the development in equipment. But do you think there's a next step? Do you think we're going to be able to go further, or do you think we've hit a plateau and generally what we've got right now is going to be the best we've got?
Oh, no. I think definitely. Just for an example, I know this frame actually gets a lot of hate. This is actually a huge step forward in a lot of slingshots. This is that Axiom X from Simple Shot. Mm-hmm. Having a frame that you can actually fine tune to your size, go all the way from 100 millimeters down to a smaller size on a frame, and actually change how the frame feels in your hand by moving other parts of it. That's kind of like a small step forward for us today, but in the future, I can really definitely see them somehow finding a better elastic. I think that's where most of the technology is going to come from, is actually the elastic on getting maybe more speed with less draw weight, that kind of thing, for accuracy and whatnot. I think it's probably where we're going to find all of our advancement in the sport, was actually having lighter rubber with faster retraction, with less weight, and on the pouch side as well, having lighter materials. That's where I think the sport's going to go forward. As we're looking at them now, all these forks seem to be traditional in maybe they're going to come out with some that you can actually go to a custom guy and you're going to squeeze it in your hand and it's actually going to fit you like a glove. Maybe that's something that's out there. I don't know if anybody's ever done that before or not, but
do it. ATO,
yeah.
ATO Slingshots, right?
Huh? How cool would that be, eh? Show up
I'd
at your
sign
custom maker, you just squeeze some kind of template, and all of a sudden he creates something for you that's going to fit you perfectly.
And that sounds good. That sounds good. And as we're on the topic of rubbers,